check. Testing.
Check.
Okay. Looks fine on our side.
Okay. Yeah, I think mine's going too.
Okay, cool. All right, so we're going to sync real quick, and then Alex is just going to lead us in, and we'll just go from there.
Yep.
Sound good? Okay. So syncing in 3, 2, 1, sync. You're supposed to say sync.
Oh, sorry, sync.
Okay, let's try that again. Okay. Syncing in 3, 2, 1, sync.
Hey everybody, welcome back to part 3 of Alex and Jimmy's not quite week of spread over the weekend music week of cool Beard Bros funness.
Great.
Jirard is still on vacation, and today, to continue our theme of music and games, me and Jimmy are here with Laura Shigihara. Hi, Laura.
Hi, guys.
What is up?
Nothing much. Happy to be here.
Yeah, great. Well, yeah, Jimmy just decided he wanted to try and get Laura on here because he's a big fan, and we just want to talk about some cool stuff that's going on in her life right now. And yeah, we're all big fans of her work, so we're gonna talk to her for a little bit.
For those of you who don't know who Laura Shigihara is, she worked on the music and I believe also the sound design for Plants vs. Zombies. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, and also if you've heard or played To the Moon, she worked on the soundtrack for that. So 2 pretty prevalent indie soundtracks that are both very fantastic in my opinion.
Aw, thank you.
But yeah, and so I actually just curious, what like made you? Well, first of all, like how'd you get to like work on Plants vs. Zombies? Like what led up to that?
You want the long story or the short story?
I mean, the medium story would be fine.
Medium story. Okay. Well, I went to college for something like not music related, but I was always working on music on the side, and I made like a CD with stuff that I had made, and I gave it to my friend in Japan, and she, without telling me, gave it to a bunch of record companies because she worked for this like teen magazine, and she's like, haha, I'll do this secretly. But she put my parents' phone number on the applications. Wow. So my parents started getting a bunch of calls from these record companies offering me auditions, and they thought it was a joke. And they're like, who are these people that are calling us?
Wow.
So it turned out it wasn't a joke, and I flew to Japan and auditioned at a bunch of companies and was actually offered contracts at a few places, which was very, very exciting for me.
Wow.
I ended up not signing for personal reasons because some of them wanted me to leave college before I was done, and some of them wanted me to do stuff I wasn't completely comfortable with. But I think it was at that point I was like, oh, maybe I could actually have a career in like a creative field, since I'd always loved music and art and writing and stuff like that. So from there, I just kept building up my portfolio. I worked at Tick Games. That was my first contract job. And I told them, you know, I'm so pumped to be doing a video game soundtrack, since I loved game music since I was a kid. Like, I was like, I'm so pumped up, I will do it for free.
Wow.
Because I know that like you guys have people you can use, and I don't want to be the bottleneck. And I'm so confident that like I'll get it to you on time. And they ended up liking it a lot, the work I did. So they hired me for a bunch of different projects, and I started building up my portfolio from there. So I guess that's kind of how I got my start in the game industry. And yeah, before I worked on PVZ, I did maybe about like 10 game soundtracks, just like small casual games. Yeah.
Now, you briefly mentioned that you were in Japan when this whole record company thing went down. So did you grow up in Japan exclusively, or was it kind of like a back and forth type of thing? Or
I grew up Mostly in California, but I spent the first few years of my life in Japan. So, and then I went back and forth because all my dad's side of the family is in Japan. Well, my dad is here, but all his family is in Japan. And then all my mom's side is like in New York. So we went to all three places a lot.
Oh, wow.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So you are working on your own game right now called Laughin. What kind of spurred you on to get going on your own like individual project? It's just you working on it, right?
Yeah, it's mainly me doing like the game design and programming and all that stuff. But then I'm also working with my friend Emi Toyonaga, and she's doing like the concept art and the portrait art that you see when you talk to people. And then just there's a lot of like people where I'll be like, hey, I'll do some music for you in exchange for like a tile set, or I'm helping my friend out with like programming his game in exchange for the forest tile set that you see in the game and stuff like that. Yeah.
And this game is an RPG, correct?
Actually, it's not. It's It started off as that. It went through a couple iterations, but it's an adventure game. I guess it's kind of like a mix between. Have you ever played Maniac Mansion?
Oh my God! Have I ever played Maniac Mansion? What a game!
I'm glad you've heard of it because I keep talking to people that don't know about that game, and I'm like, you need to play it. It's really, really fun.
My band just put out, like, for Halloween last year, we put out like a little single that was called Maniac Mansion. Like that's how important that game is.
Oh, that's so awesome. I got in trouble for playing that game because I was really young at the time and like desperate to get through it, and I'd get stuck, and I ended up having to call like the Nintendo hotline. And that was just, I was in big trouble. I knew I was going to get in trouble too, but I did it anyway.
Oh my God. That reminds me of just being a kid, that Nintendo hotline.
I think I'm kind of lucky to have grown up just a little past when that was a big thing, because I think I would have cost my parents a lot of money doing that.
Yeah, but like the game is it's got a lot of elements from that. I mean, you don't have verbs like look or open or whatever. Like you interact with it like with a JRPG, like where you can walk up to things and press a button to kind of talk to NPCs or inspect things. But there's a lot of finding keys and putting things together to make things, to open other things, and kind of like room escape elements. So there's a lot of that. And then there's some layouts that I guess are kind of similar to like Link to the Past, like Zelda Link to the Past, where you're kind of solving puzzles from the outside in, and you go through like a pretty big dungeon map kind of area, but there's no fighting, there's no leveling up or equipment or anything like that. So I guess it's kind of like a mix of different things.
Interesting. So it's kind of a more or less like a tranquil kind of game.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, well, let's see. Some people who have play tested it so far tell me that they get really stressed out in parts because there's like one area that's like set in a really creepy section of this hospital, and you're all alone, and it's there are parts where it gets pretty kind of eerie or intense. But besides that, I'd say it's more whimsical feeling and kind of like exploration based, as opposed to like really sad or something like that.
Yeah, and speaking of the hospital, this game kind of has like a very interesting sort of narrative device behind it, which involves like reading from a book, like a storybook, like a kid in a hospital is being read to, and he kind of like also kind of goes to a similar world himself. Is that correct?
Yeah. Basically, his mom reads to him every night from this storybook, and he gets bored of being there, so he asks her if she'll escort him to the world from his book. So she kind of tells him, like, yeah, there's, doors around the hospital that lead to the world, and they end up searching the hospital and getting to this other world. And in that place, the boy meets, I guess you could say, the alter egos of a lot of his neighbors in the hospital. So for example, like the neighbor directly south of him is this cranky old man who is kind of a cameo of my grandfather. He has a very good heart, but it's like masked by this really cranky exterior. And the nurses sort of refer to him as like a grumpy bear. So when you get to the other world and you meet his alter ego, it's this big angry bear that's like terrorizing the people in the village.
That's awesome.
And you have to, I guess like the point of the game becomes kind of like learning about meeting all the different people in the hospital, and each of them have some kind of struggle and some sort of mystery tied to the hospital that they need to get through. And the boy is like the only one that can really help them at that point, and he helps them by interacting with their alter egos in the fantasy world.
Oh, so wow. Is that inspired by something in your life, or was it more kind of like a thing that was kind of like inspired by like the design of the game that you wanted to go with?
Yeah, it's a very personal game. There's all four of my grandparents are in there in some way, shape, or form. And there are a lot of like stories that were either inspired by my life or inspired by like one of the stories is about my mother and her dad. So there's a lot of, I think a lot of real life things. And another part that inspired me a lot. Have you guys seen the movie Life is Beautiful?
Yes.
Okay, so one of my favorite things about that film is just the relationship between the guy and his son, like how the father is able to create this like kind of, whimsical, magical world for the boy, and the boy thinks he's playing a game the whole time, and he has no idea how horrible things are around him. And it just got me thinking about the power of, parents or caretakers to create these worlds for their kids and how they can completely change the child's outlook.
Yeah, it's very amazing. That movie, really, I haven't thought about that movie in a long time.
Yeah. I need to go back and watch it again.
Yeah, that is a good movie. But yeah, so you're also doing the soundtrack for this game as well, right?
Right.
So I'm very like, you have a very unique like sort of style to your music that doesn't really, I don't know, it's very like relevant without sounding a lot like a lot of other video game composers. And I was wondering if there was a moment when you decided to like make the switch from like, practical traditional music outlets to more digital ones, and if that was sort of inspired by either your preferences for music writing or more just like something that happened out of convenience or accident or whatever.
Well, I think that my style has always been kind of like video game influenced, even when I was doing songs, in Japan and stuff like that. I think my sound always kind of, people would say, oh, it reminds me of video game music. And I think that's because growing up, well, I was classically trained on the piano, but then like I listened to a lot of game music, like especially stuff from the Mega Man series and like old Capcom games, and those are they're super catchy and melodic. And I just remember like I would leave the system on so I could listen to the game music in the background, and it would drive my mom crazy. But I tried to also learn stuff on the piano when I was really young, so I played all this game music as a very small child on the piano, and I think that shaped me a lot.
That's so neat. I remember trying to figure that out for the song from the end of Zelda, like that kind of beautiful little like music box sounding song.
Oh yeah.
I remember when I was fooling around with piano back before I gave up on it forever. I remember trying to sound that out, so that's really neat.
Are there any composers specifically that you take inspiration from in your music, or is it just like generally, like a lot of the games from your past, like you said, Mega Man and Capcom games, or?
Yeah, I think I learned a lot from Yasunori Mitsuda, the Chrono Trigger composer. So he was a big influence. And then, of course, the music from Final Fantasy and Uematsu and Yoko Shimomura. And I guess just like the sound team in general at Capcom created so much music that was just super catchy. And I love dissecting it So yeah, all those people kind of influenced me a lot.
So was that like totally crazy when you were on that Play for Japan?
Oh my gosh, yes. It was such a big honor. And yeah, I don't know, that just blew my mind. Recently too, so I was actually thinking, maybe, I know that Mitsuda-san has his own company, and I'm like, maybe I should talk to him about working together. Oh no, I shouldn't, and I was kind of working up the courage. And then he messages me like out of the blue and was like, oh, I'm working on this album and I need a female vocalist and I would be honored if you would work with me. And I was like,
wow.
What?
Oh my gosh.
I was like freaking out because I'm like, you're such a big influence on me. I would be very honored.
Yeah,
oh
I can't even imagine.
When do we get to see that?
I'm not sure, but like hopefully sometime soon. We've been talking. So
that is so cool.
Well, speaking of which, for those of you who also don't know, you have 2 separate YouTube channels that you sort of, I mean, I'm assuming you put your videos up kind of as a hobby, but which feature a lot of like interesting covers of video game music and also original music on your second channel. And I remember hearing the song Jump that you composed, that you made on your channel, like it seems like forever ago, but it's also part of the Laughin soundtrack. And so that kind of had me wondering, how long have you been working on Laughin, and was the song before the game, or was it after you had already like conceptualized the game?
Oh, so that song actually was like the starting point for the whole game. I contributed that to the Play for Japan album. And I guess the idea behind it was just that, well, there were 2 ideas. Like the first one is that you don't always know what's going to happen when you go forward, but you just have to like hope for the best, whether it's like a new job or a new relationship, or, you get sick and you don't know what's going to happen. You just have to like put your best foot forward and, hope for the best. And the other thing I thought of was the idea of when you are, sick or depressed or going through things, you kind of just want someone to tell you everything's going to be all right. And I think that like when your mom or your, whoever takes care of you when you're growing up tells you that, they don't always tell you how it's going to be all right or how it's going to work out, but just hearing it in and of itself is very comforting. Like still to this day, if my mom's like, don't worry, it's going to be okay. I'm like, oh, okay, it's going to be okay. So I think it's just that idea that like everyone's got that child in them that wants to be told that when they're going through something. So that song, my friend Emmy and I, we were both working at EA at the time, and we were like, oh, we should make like this, like maybe like some really simple animated music video for it. She's a wonderful artist, and she actually made me some fan art for my hobbyist RPG Mellowloon. And so then I was just like, Emmy, do you want to do this? So she's like, yeah, totally. And so we were working on it, but then she ended up moving to Washington because her husband got a job at Valve. So I don't want to bother her. I'm like, oh, she's probably really busy. And so when I visited her and we were having dinner, she showed me sketches and she's like, hey, do you still want to work on this? Because I do. And I was like so inspired by her artwork that I was like, dude, we need to make a game. So that's kind of how that got started.
Do you have a lot of experience in programming and whatnot?
I would not consider myself a great programmer. I almost got a computer science minor in college, but I did a double major, so I would have gone over units if I did. So I took like all but one class, I think, to finish that. So I have done programming, but I'm not good. I do what I need to do to get by, basically.
Great.
Yeah, I guess I kind of asked that rather long-winded question because I got the Laughin soundtrack back when you released it, or like the pre-release version of it for months ago. And I like it just kind of struck me when I listened to the full version of Welcome to the Forest for the first time, and like Jump made like a cameo appearance as like the second half of the song.
Yeah.
And it just kind of made me really excited. And I was wondering if like one came from the other, and I guess it's Welcome to the Forest came from Jump.
Yeah, I think that theme also gets worked into some of the other ones that I haven't made public yet, but that theme kind of goes throughout the game because Jump will be the ending credits song, kind of ties everything together.
Okay. It's awesome. I really, really really do enjoy that song, and the theme that you were talking about definitely is pretty like prevalent throughout the song. I really enjoy it.
Oh, thank you.
So how's Rockwin going? How's the development process going?
It's good. It's in, I call it pre-beta, like somewhere between alpha and beta. It's not fully content complete yet. Like there's like ending quests and stuff that I have to take care of, but it's far enough along that I've started doing testing. I'd say it's like, I don't know, like 80% of the way there. People play tested it, and it's like a lot longer than I thought it was going to be. Initially, I was just planning for it to be like 6 hours, but at this point, people are already clocking like 10 hours. So
wow.
I'm like, okay, I guess it's longer than I thought. But it's coming along nicely. One thing I've learned is that puzzle games are definitely more polarizing or hard to gauge than RPGs. Like I thought taking battles out of it would make it a lot easier to test and like make it more universal. But oh my goodness, like I'm really surprised what one person would find super easy, another person gets really frustrated over. So much of what I've been doing recently is just iterating on that, like trying to make the puzzles more universal without making them too easy for like the first group of people. So that's been a challenge.
That's definitely, that's as a person who I fawn over level design on my own show and channels, like it's very interesting when I talk about level design and people like counterpoint me with like, well, I think that's bad design because it doesn't show me this, this, and this. And it's very interesting how subjective even something like that can be.
Yeah.
And while we're talking about, you mentioned Melaloon. Where is that in development? I'm just curious.
Oh, so Melaloon, I got pretty far along on that, and I ended up putting it on hold because I got offered a job at EA, and I wasn't gonna take it at first, but it was a director of audio position, which is pretty rare, I think, just in general, and even more rare like for females. So I was just like, oh man, I really should take this. And they were telling me like, oh, you can like improve the music and make it more catchy and this and that. And so I was just like, oh, this is such a great opportunity. And they actually let me keep the rights to my game and continue working on it as long as I didn't let it interfere with my job. But working there, I really didn't have time to work on it, even though I was allowed to. So at the point where I started working there, I was probably about 90% finished. Like all I was doing was going back and balancing like boss battles and finishing up like the last section. So when I left EA, I was just kind of like, okay, well, I guess I'm gonna finish Melaloon. But you know how when you play an RPG and then you stop for a while and you go back to it and you're kind of like, oh, what's going on? What am I supposed to be doing? It's like 100 times worse when you're making an RPG.
Oh gosh.
I spent just like 2 weeks playing through it and like taking notes and trying to figure out where I was, because it's like a 20-hour game. It's very long. And I was feeling very overwhelmed and like really rusty with certain things. And I had promised myself I wasn't going to do another project until I finished it, because I saw so many people starting games and like quitting and then starting new ones, and I was like, oh, I'm not going to do that. But I figured like maybe the scope is so huge and I will continue to want to do things beyond the finished point. So I was like, maybe I should just do a small project, kind of like to get warmed up again. And that was when I was talking with Emmy, and I was really inspired to do Rockwin, and I figured it was kind of the type of game that more people could play, including my mom. So I was like, okay, I guess it's all right to work on this. So that's the state of Melaloon. I think I do want to go back and finish it when I'm done, but it's going to be so hard because I've learned so much, and I'll want to change things because Melaloon was my first game project, and a lot of the stuff from the beginning I cringe at. I'm like, I could have done this differently.
Well, hopefully Rockwin is like just the hugest runaway success, and it's like super encouraging. It gives you all the encouragement that you need to finish Melaloon.
Oh, thank you for saying that.
Back on Rockwin though, I actually wanted to ask you, was it Emmy who came up with the concept art and designed the Leebles, or who designed the Leebles if not her?
Those are actually mine.
Oh, really?
Because they're in Mellowloon, like they're a huge part of Mellowloon, and I really liked them, so I wanted to carry them over to this game. But actually, so I have a lot of different Leeble designs, and a lot of my friends have drawn Leebles for me as like gifts and stuff like that. And Emmy's take on the Leebles I really like a lot. So I was like, let's go with that style. Like she does something where like the ears are a little bit angled a little bit differently and stuff like that. So so I guess the original design is mine. But then the concept art, like, and the dialogue portraits you see, those are hers.
Oh, wow. Okay. So I mentioned your YouTube channel just a little while ago, but more to the point on that, like, was there anything that like inspired you to just like start making YouTube content, or was it just like a hobby thing that you wanted to do for fun? Because I know a couple of your first videos were just Plants vs. Zombies music, but just done on the piano. And I think that's where I found you, definitely. And I think that's where a lot of people would find your channel.
Let's see. Well, the first video I ever posted was like a trailer for the Mellowloon demo, which I just put up because I needed a place to put a video.
Right.
And then after that, I don't remember the chronology exactly, but German Seabass on YouTube, he made a bunch of piano arrangements for the PVZ music, and he was like, yeah, now that I made these, you should post yourself playing because you're the composer. And I was like, maybe I should. So I just like recorded a couple piano videos, and yeah, I guess that's what started it. I'd always wanted to post like other covers I'd done, but I don't generally like posting things if it's already been done a bunch of times.
Right.
So you'll notice I do kind of like weird stuff, or if I do something that's been done before, I try to do something a little bit different with it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, specifically one of my favorite covers that you've done is the Ballad of the Goddess from Skyward Sword cover, because, and correct me if any of this information is wrong, you wrote your own lyrics for it, and they are in Hylian?
Yes, so the ones that are in, half of them I think come from the game, and then the other part that's like the melody that I composed to go with it, yeah, those are like a mix of like Hylian and then the language that I use to write lyrics for Mellowloon music.
Really?
Yeah.
That just like blows me away, because like the first time I listened to it, I was like, wow, this is really good. I wonder where she got all this from. And then like I checked through the description and noticed that you had mentioned that it was in Hylian and that some of it was like that you wrote, and it was just kind of like, this is like a next level
That's
cover.
Some Tolkien stuff right there.
Yeah, like this isn't just your average like, oh yeah, I just covered a song. It's like a lot of effort and uniqueness.
Aww, thank you.
But yeah, and you don't kind of stick to one style either. You do, like, I noticed the Phi's theme cover was a cappella, and the Skyward Sword one had other music behind it, and other ones you do are like Jump or From the Ground Up, have electronic elements and kind of your signature style that came from PVZ and everything. So I don't know, just a wide variety of interesting things. I really like your YouTube channel.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Sometimes I feel like it's super random. Other channels I see are more like cohesive, but I'm just like, well, I'm feeling like this today.
Well, the more people who make like, video game music and independent music and stuff like that just kind of like take it in their own hands and like throw it out there on the internet, the better, in my opinion. So keep at it, whatever it is, whatever form it takes.
Yeah, most definitely.
What else do we want to talk about? Is that all we got? Anything else that you're working on, or anybody that you've been listening to that you want to show some love?
Gosh, there's so many different people. I don't know where to start. I always talk about this one, but I played this one game called Fleuret Blanc, which my friend Lanny did, and that's one of my favorite indie games right now. It's such a weird game. You're like in this creepy chateau in France, and you join a fencing club, and it's so weird. Like, but I really enjoyed that game a lot, and the soundtrack I listen to when I'm doing pixel art. So I recommend people check that out.
That's great.
Actually, I wanted to ask, like, you went to the Zelda Symphony when that was around, correct?
Oh yeah, I did. Oh yeah.
Are you planning on going to the Pokemon Symphonic Evolutions?
You know, I didn't even know about that.
It's put on by the same people, and it's going to be, well, they only have 3 dates announced right now, but the first date I think is almost sold out, so I think they're gonna announce more.
Oh.
Then let me rephrase my question. Would you go to that if it was around here?
Probably. Yeah.
Did you grow up playing Pokemon games at all? Like, would you know the music offhand?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I watched the TV show and everything.
All right. I mean, that's the most deep burning question I could think of right now.
Great. Well, where can everybody find you? How can they support you if they want to support you?
Well, I have a YouTube channel. I have a new Facebook because for the longest time I did not have one. But then there were all these fake ones popping up, and my friends would leave me messages there and be like, "How come you never respond to me?" And I'm like, "Those aren't me." So I'll give you the link to my real one. It's actually just my name. And then I have Twitter. So any of those places you can check me out.
And your Twitter is @SuperShiggy, right? And that's also your YouTube channel. And your second YouTube channel is Shiggy Tea Time?
Yes.
Okay.
Cool. We'll throw that all in the description. Whatever we can throw into the annotations, we will annotate so that people may find you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and for anybody who's interested, the soundtrack for Rakuin, at least partially, is available on your Bandcamp right now, which is laurashigihara.bandcamp.com. And I got it, and I listen to it quite often. And there's only a few tracks out right now, but it's 27 tracks total when that comes out for real. And I'm looking forward to that, and you should all look forward to that too.
I am.
You are?
I am.
Good. But anyway, thank you for coming on today and interviewing with us and having fun and hanging out.
Well, thank you for having me. That was a very fun podcast interview.
It's pretty much like, if we're being real, it's pretty much a podcast.
Anything you want to plug, Alex?
Anything I want to plug? I don't know. This closes out our week or week's worth of Jimmy music content on Super Beard Bros, which has been real great. Shout out to Laura Shigihara for being just the coolest gangster on the planet, showing up and doing this interview with us. But other than that, I think we're about done.
All right, cool. So thanks for watching, guys. Thank you again, Laura, for joining us, and we'll see you on Wednesday for other stuff.
Yeah, we'll see you for more videos on Wednesday, guys.
All right, on Wednesday. Bye, everybody.
Later, man.
All right.
Oh, good. That was fun.
Okay.